I would like to talk about toughness regeneration speed. So, this stat has three giant problems that I never see discussed, and we'll talk about those at the end of the video. Right now, I'm just going to show you all the information as factually as I can. So, it doesn't work with any kind of toughness restore from the tree. This is very easy to showcase by just, you are not who I need right now. This is very easy to showcase by just blowing myself up with a toughness replenishment node and timing how long it takes to get back up to 10. So that was with no toughness regeneration. It took 2.7-ish seconds, give or take, for human error. And if we do it with toughness regeneration, it takes about the exact same amount of time. You'll have to forgive me for those microseconds of error. But needless to say, it obviously doesn't work with any kind of toughness regeneration from the tree. So what does it actually do? Well, it increases your coherency toughness regeneration. And I'll explain how that works in detail in just 1 second. So, we have no toughness regeneration right now. Oops, sorry. We have no toughness regeneration right now, but we do have loner. So, we're going to count from the delay, because it also lowers the delay. So, it took us 3.6 seconds to get back up to 10 there. Now, if we have full toughness regeneration, you're going to see quite the difference. Especially if we count the delay, it basically halves it exactly as you would expect it to do. And in case you're wondering, yes, this stacks exactly how you think it does with a passive like this. And that is important for reasons we'll talk about later. So, with full toughness regeneration and that node, much, 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 much faster. So, how, you may ask, does this work in general? Let's take this off. The way that this works with your team is also exactly as you would expect. So if I spawn some teammates here and then break my toughness, you can see, so your base toughness coherency is 3 for 2 people, 5 for 3 people, and 7 for 4 people. So if I blow myself up now with no toughness regeneration, counting the delay, and we see how long it takes to get to 50, you can see it takes 5 seconds. Now, if we add in our toughness regeneration, you can see this is going to go by much faster. So, that looks pretty good. And if that's where this video ended, it would be a very good stat and I would have no trouble recommending it. So, what's the actual problem here? Now, let's talk about the problems that this stat runs into and why it doesn't see much use in higher level gameplay. 1. It doesn't work with any form of replenishment from the tree. It doesn't matter if it's restore, replenish, whatever. Psyker and Veteran can already restore hundreds of toughness a second, so their want for this is already kind of out of the question. But Zealot and Ogryn have access to these two nodes, which already doubles the already effectively doubled delay and speed of regeneration gets another double effect. So, the argument usually comes down to using this on these two classes. Now, why would you not want to use this on, say, a Zealot specifically? Well, if I spawn some trash mobs, you're going to see that the way it interacts with the slot system is really not favorable at all. So I'm going to take some damage here. And look, even though I have Loner, you can see, that was a dodge giving me toughness back there, sorry. I can't get any toughness back. So if you are taking this as to help you in combat, you are mistaken in what it does. Now, if I even try to break off a combat, you can see that combat's not considered over. I mean, look, I'm going to get my entire toughness back. There you go. So I got almost my entire toughness back by the time I actually broke off of the combat, far before toughness regeneration did anything for me. So, I have a whole video explaining the slot system more in depth. If you care for that, you can just watch that video. But, what if you're an Ogryn, and you think you get shot a whole bunch, and you want to use this to help mitigate that? Because that is a very common thing that people say all the time. Is that, well, Ogryn gets shot more, so I want to stop this. Well, as you can see, getting shot still breaks your toughness regen. So, even if you're using this to stop gunners, if you're getting shot more, just like that, exactly what just happened to me just now, if you believe you're getting shot more, then this stat still has hampered effectiveness. I won't lie, It is pretty nice if you're always by your teammates and you just want it to help you fight gunners. It is undeniably effective at that. However, you do have to consider that if you think you're getting shot a lot, every time you get shot, it resets the delay on the when the toughness starts to regenerate. So you still have to play the same way you would as if you didn't have this stat, even if you do have it. Okay, so it's really not worth it on veteran, and it's really not worth it on psyker. Well, because I believe that if you don't have this passive, there's no reason to be using this stat at all. So if we take this passive off, and we keep our loadout with toughness regeneration, and we spawn a couple gunners, well, you can see that the speed at which it starts regenerating is awful. I'm letting them hit me here to give you an example, but this is not good. Just by dodging their shots, I'm going to get more toughness back. So, if you want to use this stat, you need to use it on all 3 of your curios and use it with a passive like this. So, this really only leaves Ogren as a viable use case for this. Well, what's the next problem? So problem number 1 is if you're in melee combat, you basically can't receive this benefit ever at all for any reason. The second problem is if you're getting shot by, say, 20 gunners with machine guns and they're constantly pinging your toughness, that is also going to severely diminish the effectiveness of this. Well, what's the third problem? The third problem is you actually have to be in coherency. So, again, that may not sound like a big deal, but if your teammates break coherency for even a second, you know, like if one guy just like runs off over here, it's kind of hard because it's a bot and bots literally only try to stick to you. But I mean, look, let's say one guy is a knife zealot and he's always ahead of you. Well, that directly nerfs your stat. Well, rather indirectly, I should say. So if your teammates aren't down to sit behind cover with you and slowly pick off the gunners, say you have a zealot that just charges in to get into melee with them so they stop shooting altogether, well, that's going to severely hamper the effectiveness of this stat. Because every person who's not in your coherency is effectively making your investment like 40 to 50% worse. And you're giving up 1 skill point and a whole curio's worth of rolls for it. Now, you may not think that's a problem, and I'm not going to argue with you, honestly, because I think there is valid room, especially on Ogren specifically for this, but I do think it's nowhere near as good as people give it credit for. Because one, if you consider, if you're playing an Ogren and there's a lot of gunners, and you use the charge ultimate, as soon as you get into melee, they're going to stop shooting. And the ones that don't stop shooting, you're going to knock them over anyways. So that's kind of, you know, catch-22 situation, where gunners want you. A misconception you see with a lot of people, gunners want you to be back here fighting them like this, slowly trying to pick them off. Because if you were to just run in, you know, dodge, slide, use an ultimate to dash in or whatever, they would just all stop shooting and try to run away. And then they're basically easy targets. Gunners only are a threat when you pull out your gun from a range and try to fight back at them. But I will say, it's worth you have to remember that is the easiest way to deal with gunners. So a lot of lesser experienced people are going to gravitate towards that. So I do think this stat definitely has place and has a value. I don't think it's something you should never take, but I do think it's something that you need to be very careful about taking. I would be very wary of anyone that just tells you to always slap it on and don't think about it, because I mean that's just bad advice for life, frankly. But I think it's nuanced. I really do think there is some nuance to it. I think the 2 cases where this stat are worthwhile is when you are a loner stealth zealot, because at any point you can just hit Shroud Field. Let me get rid of this bot real quick. At any point, you can just say, okay, well, I don't want to deal with this situation, so you can just say, boom, I'm out. That breaks their slots aggro on you immediately, and, you know, there you go. So to give you a more in-depth explanation, as you can see, as soon as I hit Shroud Field, they all break the slots. They're not considered in melee with me. I don't have to run away. I don't have to do anything. So that is where it's really good. Loner's a powerful part of that equation because it guarantees you're always going to benefit from coherency. The second time I think that this stat is worthwhile is on an Ogryn that wants to play the game slower, where you and your whole team move as a big ball group and you just kind of snowball the map. I think that those are the only times this stat provides any value. Because 90% of your toughness regeneration, as you saw when I was doing that mock fight just there, it's going to come from passives like this. Like, think, the Ogryn just does a heavy melee attack, they get like 30% back. The Veteran kills one special, they get like 40% back. The Psyker does literally anything and gets like 50% back. So, I just think it's nuanced. I don't think it's something you should always do, and I don't think it's something you should write off as worthless. But I do think you should remember the overarching rules of it. You need a way to disengage from the fight effectively to benefit from it, be it gunners or melee. You need a way to guarantee you're at least getting 2 coherency, preferably 3, and you really do want 4, because that's when, if you can always have 4 coherency, that's when it starts being really powerful, and you always need to take one of these nodes. If any of those conditions are not met, this stat effectively does nothing at worst and just heals up your toughness pretty quickly in between fights at best. Now, if you personally value that for your playstyle, then more power to you. Okay, I think that's everything I wanted to say about this stat.